Okay, this is something I used to tell my students. I taught at the School of Visual Arts in New York City for 6 years until I just couldn't take it anymore. And, but it was, you know, this, like, I was always taught concept, concept, concept. Like, any dope can style something to make it look nice. But you only do that after you figure out what your concept is. This is an example of that. I've been honored to do covers for Orhan Pamuk for many years. The first one was his breakout book, My Name is Red. And this was about 16th century Turkish court painters, and there's a murder, and there's an illicit love story, and blah, blah, blah. And so basically, we have a great art research department. We have 3 people in it. And so I say to L'Oreal, I say, okay, let's get just a ton of these paintings that are accurate to the period and place and situation of this book, and then send them to me and let me work with them. And which is what we did. And so basically, you know, I don't want the title to be in red. I don't know if you can tell that, but it's in blue. And so the suggestion of the Sultan in red is that he's the one, but you're only getting part of his story, and then on the spine you're getting the illicit love story, and then there's also the guy on the horse with the bow who's conspiring to murder him. So when you take this very traditional artwork and chop it up and then rearrange it, you can change the meaning, and you can literally deconstruct it and put it back together again to make something new, which is what the author was doing with the knowledge. This is the other thing. When you are reducing your concepts, I've been described as a minimalist, which is fine, but as long as it doesn't get so reductive to the point where there's nothing there, or that it becomes simply boring. There still has to be a concept. It's all right if it doesn't have a ton of elements to it, but it still has to mean something. I was honored to design the first edition of a work by Nabokov. This was the set of note cards. This was the manuscript for the novel that he left on his deathbed, which was about, you know, not unsurprisingly, a writer who was basically erasing himself out of existence. And you know, it was very sort of conceptual, kind of magic realism, but basically he was erasing himself. And it was called The Original of Laura, which is actually kind of weird. But anyway, we published this 2 falls ago, and it was a big literary event. But what basically what I had to deal with was Nabokov's son, Dmitri, and expectations for this is the last great statement by certainly one of the greatest writers of the 20th century. And the question became this, that, you know, I want you to look at this book and you can tell that it's literally on the way out. And so that became the answer, and I was just lucky that after, you know, 24 years at that point of doing this, I'd literally never faded to black before. In a lot of ways, it's kind of a cheap trick. It's so easy to do. You get an instant emotional reaction from your audience, but you can do it once. Once you do that, you can't do it again, because it will lose its power. It will lose any kind of iconic status it might have had. And so luckily I had never done it before, and there it was. I also tried fading into white. It didn't have the same impact. All right. Occasionally I will engage to do something that is complex. I've been doing Haruki Murakami's book covers for many, many years. He did an epic novel called The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle, which is very complicated to explain. But basically, part of it is that the protagonist, throughout the story, thinks he hears a toy bird singing, but he can't see it. And so what I wanted to do was engage a toy bird, but then blow it up past, again, this is basically kind of, I did this before doing the Batman thing. It's a similar concept. In terms of a large eye that's abstracted and you can't figure out what the rest of it is. If you open the rest of the jacket, you get then the full image of it. This is the spine and the back and the wind-up key and all this. Now, the extra element I wanted to add, because again, it is a very complex story, in that I hired a cartoonist named Chris Ware to basically design, all right, what would the inside of this bird look like if it was, you know, if it was this big, and the actual bird is only that big, but what if it was huge? What would the mechanical inner workings of this bird look like? And so he basically drew that, and then we had that surprinted over the jacket in a spot gloss with a little bit of metal flake in it, so that if you held it in the right light, you could see the inner workings of the bird. And then if you took the jacket off on the binding underneath, you would get that. And so, you know, again, I'm indulged in this way. Like the binding of the book isn't necessarily going to help sell it at all. This is basically helping to make it more into a cohesive work of art. That's genuinely how I see it. Now, you know, as much as I love doing the book jackets, and I think they're important, and they are literally why I'm sitting here before you right now, the most important thing always is the book itself. Is this serving the text? I think it was, and certainly the author did. We don't do anything like this if the author doesn't approve it. Murakami, frankly, is very easy to work with, but he has to see all this, and he has to approve it and understand why it's being done. And he did. And I'm going to show another thing of his in just a short minute. I was sitting yesterday thinking, wait a minute, I've got to show a Polish author if I'm going to be in Poland. And I'm trying to think, there has to have been one in 25 years. And I had to dig back quite a few years, and then it's like, oh my God, yes, Mr. Herbert. And a book of poems that he did called Mr. Cogito, and I never got to meet him or even remotely, but I loved the poems, and I was able to make this kind of extracted, again, this is not a good scan, this is yanked off the internet this afternoon, but it's basically taking, there's a lot about identity, obviously, connected with the title and with the poems themselves, and it was about taking an extremely abstracted image of a person and using typography basically as an accessory, as a hat, as a bow tie, anyway, that's sort of my thing for Polish authors that I worked on. I do love working on poetry. There's a woman named Marie Ponceau that I've also worked on her poems for quite some time. She's getting up there. She's about 85 years old, and Easy it's an ironic title. It's about getting old. It's about your body falling apart. It's about things having to keep up appearances while underneath things are not going so well. And I came upon the photography of this guy, Mark Sinek, I think, who stages these simple flowers in vases and then shoots them with an extremely high strobe light so that the vases are exploding while the flowers still look beautiful and composed, when you know in the next second it's all about to come apart. But this very much embodied what she was trying to say. Okay, winding down. Using the vernacular, Oliver Sacks, the man who mistook his wife for a hat, Awakenings. I've done his covers for many, many years. He is well, he wouldn't say this, but he's a psychologist and a neurologist, and he looks into different ways the brain works, whether it's through eyesight in this case, or how the deaf communicate to each other, how music works in the brain, etc., etc. This new one is called The Mind's Eye. He also is getting up there in age. He's in his 70s, late 70s. He goes to the eye doctor. He's made to look at the eye chart, and all sorts of horrible things are starting to happen while he's trying to read the eye chart. So I start thinking about eye charts, and I do this search on the web, and I find this one that I really liked. Now, so people are starting to laugh because they get it. I did not get it at all. I frankly thought it was cool because it had an O at the top. So, you know, I'm just as clueless as the marketing person who liked the hand because it was yellow. So I'm thinking, all right, so here's my starting point for this cover. And so I changed it into typography. So obviously his name is Oliver Sacks, and setting it up so that he's trying to read his own name and read the title of his book on his eye test. And he's having trouble, so now we're going to make parts of it obscured and blurry so that to get the point across, you can still read it, but you have to make more of an effort now. And that's the whole point, is that's what he had to do. And then I just wanted to, instead of leaving it black, I wanted to give it just a little bit of color. And so, I don't know if you can tell, it's dark blue. Anyway, so this kind of makes its way through the approval process, which all depends on the book and the author and what have you. But basically, the editor has to like it. The editor-in-chief has to like it. Our marketing department has to like it. Our sales department has to like it. And then it goes off to Oliver for him to like it. And miraculously, it pretty much survived that whole gauntlet. And what I was really afraid of was, all you need is one douchebag somewhere to say, "Oh, I think it says, oh, liver sacks." And then it would be killed. But nobody said that. Everybody sort of got it. Except Oliver wanted a color concession. His assistant was like, you know, Oliver feels like, you know, this looks like too much of a downer. It needs to look more upbeat. It's like, yes, upbeat about losing your eyesight. Fine. So I said, what the hell? You know, when all else fails, make it bright red. So we did, and that basically saved the concept. I'm fine with that. And as it turned out, they were actually not so dumb. These are two images I took with my cell phone, just walking down the streets of New York. This is a book, one of my favorite bookstores in New York, St. Mark's Books. This isn't doctored in any way, and you know, there it is, all set up amongst the other books on the shelf. And what do you see first? I mean, that's pretty amazing. And then when you go, then I went into the store to see how that was, and saw that. So I had no problems with this. You know, seeing things in their environment. Again, this is something that I have absolutely no control over. You know, that once the thing goes out there, you're at the mercy of, you know, some pimply-faced kid who's getting paid $10 an hour to shelve these books, and hoping that they love literature and want to do good things.